What does the 1921 census of England and Wales tell us about life 100 years ago? In the previous episodes, we found tales of wealth and gender inequality and the pioneers who were trying to change society for the better. But it wasn't just these issues that people were taking a stand against. 1921 was a turbulent time. Society was modernising, and there were protest movements up and down the country. Many people were campaigning for a fairer society, but others were pushing for things to stay the same.
It's quite an interesting point to be shifting, and you're starting to see the seeds that are set that run into the election of the first Labour government in 1945, the creation of social security, of the NHS, nationalisation of things like the railways. You're starting to see the seeds of where the political landscape is shifting to within Britain. You know, there's still some way to go and there's still some time to pass, but it's quite interesting seeing how those are beginning to ripple out to have consequences within broader society.
The government had nationalised the mining industry, and there was a great risk that miners would have their wages reduced, and so planned to strike. There were planned sympathy strikes with railway workers and other industries. And they were called that Black Friday. It was to happen on the 15th of April 1921. When the country would be ground to a halt, the census couldn't take place, so they postponed the census to the 19th of June. That strike never actually happened, but the census date change did. It shows that even something as concrete and permanent as a census itself, which we know happens every 10 years and we're very secure in the fact that it happens, can be affected by the situation around it and the politics that surround British culture at this particular point in history.
The UK Census is actually very unique in the English-speaking world in that because the enumeration forms are actually sent to the individual household, they had a chance to speak directly to the government in a way that most censuses don't reflect. So these social comments are really prevalent across the census, and it's one of the most unique and interesting historical perspectives that we are offered today from historical materials across England and Wales.
So we're seeing people protesting what they perceive to be government interference in their lives. The nosiness of the government is mentioned by one person who's penned a little essay on their form in protest at having to fill this in.
And most people really believe that the census is going to be seen by the highest levels of officials across the political spectrum. And of course, as the figurehead for the political party in charge at the time, the Prime Minister would be the one saying, please fill out your census return. So there is a real communication here that the average individual is thinking and expecting that they're going to have. This is my chance to communicate directly with the ruling party and the ruling people.
The Prime Minister, David Lloyd George, declared at the end of the First World War that he would build a land fit for heroes for all those people who came back from the front. Despite that promise, which included vast homes built for those individuals, there was still over 13% of the population living 2 families to a dwelling and over 6% of the population living 3 families to a dwelling. We see notes added saying David Lloyd George is hereby requested to bring forth that land fit for heroes. We see ironic statements, someone noting that they're out of work, but it's okay, they now live in the land fit for heroes. These statements are really showing the immense amount of anger about the inaction that hadn't yet taken place when we look at the 1920s and the era itself.
These comments that are left on the census are the things that are most important to that person in that moment. They felt so strongly about whatever they're writing about that they felt like they had to write it on their census form. That's a pretty incredible statement just in and of itself.
It's important to bring to light these protest moments in the census itself because these are our family members. They're our parents, grandparents, great-grandparents, and they saw the world probably the same way we might see the world. And they help us to ask that question, what would we have done in similar circumstances? Would we have carried on with our lot in life and just kept quiet, or would we have also decided to stand up and be counted? Are there some rights that maybe in 100 years' time our descendants are going to be looking at and saying, why on earth didn't they stand up and also make a similar protest, and ask ourselves, could we do that if perhaps we had the opportunity, which is a really important thing to take forward as we look at today's society.
How did your family fit into society in 1921? Don't wait to find out how your past could change your future. Explore the 1921 census, available online only at Findmypast.